Hey, okay. I think I did all the things. I think I pressed all the buttons, and I think that we're officially live. Yes. Let me move some things out of the way. Um, yeah, it looks like it. Looks like it. I found out yesterday that even though Ecamm had said that it wasn't publishing to Twitter, it was. So I'm not sure why it works while saying that it doesn't work, but that's apparently a thing. Anyway, hello, how are you doing? It is lunchtime over in my time of the world. And sorry, I just got a message on the screen that I'm going to stream from, and I wanted to make sure that that doesn't show up, but I'm afraid that it might. So might be doxing myself. Uh, anyway, it's lunchtime, so I'm gonna do some more streaming today. I'm gonna cover a little bit more Epic React stuff that we didn't get to yesterday. We're very close. We're getting very close to the end of the fundamentals course, and it's been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of interesting things that I hadn't thought of, or things that I just hadn't done, I guess, like kind of understood theoretically how they work, but hadn't actually done them. So it's been a really fun exercise, and I'm excited to get back into it. We've gone all the way through 5. Those are available on my YouTube channel if you want to watch us go through that process. You want to follow along in that process. But today we're going to be covering hopefully the last 2 lessons, 6 and 7. So that is it. Yeah, let's dive in. Okay, so let's see. Share my screen. Yes, that's the screen that I want to share. Hopefully no more text messages come through. Cool. So, if you're here hanging out with me today, welcome. If you at any point have any questions about what we're doing, feel free to ask them. My goal in all of this is there's my face again. My goal in all of this is to learn this. So I'm helping to make Epic React updated for React 18, as well as and to use TypeScript examples. So I'm going to be learning a lot of the TypeScript stuff as I go along in this process. So literally no question is a stupid question. I'm going to be having plenty of stupid questions myself. So let's get into it. So we're on the lesson on forms. That's where we're at today. And we ended, we ended by building this ref example, the extra credit. And today we're going to dive right in on extra credit number 2, which is to validate lowercase. What's up, Ben? Hey, how's it going? Great stream today. It was good to see. It's always good to see you back in action. Actually, Anthony and I yesterday were talking about kind of how a bunch of us are experienced quite a kind of December slump, and so it's kind of hard to get back into the swing of things. So it's good to see you getting back into the swing of things. It's inspiring me to get back into the swing of things. So yeah, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Yep, chatting about the same stuff. It's tough. Winter's tough. Taking a break next year, just admitting it. January through March, maybe not a lot's gonna happen. Okay, cool. So let's dive into lesson. What was it 6? I think we were in this JS file, or 6. Yeah, that's where we're at. Lesson 6. We're in this JavaScript file. I feel like maybe I'd zoomed in a bunch. And I wish that there was a keyboard stroke for this in Mac, but I always have to do this because I don't have a number pad. Yeah, if there is a keyboard and stroke in Mac and I just don't know it, let me know. Okay, so production deploy. So with React, the way you use state is via a special hook called use state. Here's a simple example of what that looks like. So we have a counter count and set count from use state starting with 0. We have an incrementer function, which just takes the count and adds 1 to it. And then on click, we call that incrementer function. Okay. React use state accepts a default initial value and returns an array. Typically, you destructure the array to get the state and state updater function. Cool, cool, cool. Oh, actually, Ben, I had a question. Sorry, because you just came from a stream, and you'd mentioned web captioner, and I was looking that up. So, if I understand correctly, this is a tool that just listens to your microphone and then uses the Chrome API. And then uses the Chrome API for like captioning and just does a caption in your browser. Is that right? Nice. That's awesome. That's so cool. Um, I like that. That's such a clever idea. And yeah, I'm gonna play with that a couple more times. It was really interesting to kind of see it work for the first time because it was like waiting for a little bit, and then all of a sudden I was like, I think this is just happening based on my microphone, which is absolutely nuts. Um, so I'm gonna have to keep that in my back pocket. That's a pretty cool one. Okay, cool. So where were we? Okay, so oh man, every time I come back, it refreshes this. I'm not sure why. Okay, extra credit. We're going to say that this username input only accepts lowercase characters. So if someone types an uppercase character, that's invalid input and will show an error message. If we want our form to be dynamic, we'll need a few things: component state to store the dynamic values, an error message or in our case, and a change handler on the input so we know what the value is as the user changed it and can update the error state. Okay, I'm going to read that again because I didn't quite get it. So component state, so to store the dynamic values, which would be error messages. A change handler on the input so we know what the value is as the user changes it and can update the error message. Okay, gotcha. So this is just an event handler on our input. Okay. Once we have that wired up, we can render the error message and disable the submit button if there's an error. Okay. Okay, this one's a little tricky. So there are a few things that you need to do to make this work. So create a handle change function, and we'll just follow along with these. So let's see. Obviously, the platform native captions are better to use and more discoverable. But if you're, for instance, using StreamYard, it might be worthwhile Band-Aid to use. Yeah, totally. That's a really interesting. It's really interesting option to have, at least kind of as a fail-safe, which is really nice. Really, really, really nice. Especially because I noticed like on the stream that you were on, I think they had captions wired up for themselves. And so every time they spoke, that would add to the closed captions. But then every time you spoke, that was not integrated into the captioning system. And so it was kind of nice to have a backup for that. Okay, so we have this here. We have some stuff left over from our previous example. So I think that we'll end up keeping the ref. But then, yeah, so let's do this. We want to keep, so we have here an inline event handler. They're saying to create a handle change function. So we can do that, no problem. Function handle change. And then this is going to take an event and let's see, function that accepts the change event and uses event.target.value. So we're not exactly sure what we're going to do with that yet, but that's the value that we're going to use. Remember, this event will be triggered on the input, not the form. Yes, that's a good point. Okay, so here we were doing all this on the form. We don't want to do that any longer. We want to put this on the input. And then we may need a ref still, so I'm going to leave that there for now. But so on change, handle change. Okay. On change, handle change, and then actually we can just to make sure that we have that all set up, we can alert this value. Oh, okay. And yes, because this is on every change, it's gonna do it on every character press. So that's kind of an unpleasant experience, but we saw it. So every event that's logged, every event is going to hit this function and do whatever it is that we need to do inside of it. Okay, so we got part one of this done. Use the value of the input to determine whether there's an error. There's an error if the user typed an uppercase character. You can check this really easily via const is valid value equals value to lowercase. Okay, so we'll have a condition here, and we'll say if event.target.value equals let's see, value dot to lower case. Let's see, let's make an intermediate variable so we can assign this. So let value equal event.target.value. If value is value to equals value to lowercase, this is our everything's okay case, and otherwise we have our like default not okay. Now, depending on how this goes, we may want to switch this, kind of the polarity of this, but I think this is probably fine for now. Okay, so we're doing that check. And actually, why don't we check it at this point? So alert not okay. Alert okay. Save. Now again, this is going to happen on every change. So if I back this up, that's okay. It's okay. We're going to put a capital R there. Not okay. Cool. And then every other subsequent character is going to have that not okay. But then when we delete these, we get back to okay once we delete that R. Now I'm getting double event handlers for some reason. I wonder if this could be running in strict mode. I didn't notice that the first time we did these alerts, so I'm not exactly sure why that is, but I am seeing that running twice. So that's weird. Oh, because I'm not breaking out of this, right? If I want to break out of this, I have to return out of this function. That should fix it. Okay, so not okay. Okay, yeah, okay, cool, perfect. Yep, awesome, yep, thank you so much. Smola Gaming, yes, that's exactly, let me hover over this so you can actually see what you are saying. Oh man, where is it? There we go. Yeah. So yeah, I was the function is doing both every time. So that was my bad. I need to return out of that if I want to have the behavior that I expected. Cool. I could also wrap this in an else if I wanted. That would have fixed it as well. But I do kind of like the kind of returning and then having a default case. Let's see. What do we got? Also, welcome, Small Gaming. Thank you for being here. Okay, so to lowercase, so we're matching that function. That's all working now. So if there's an error, set the error state to username must be lowercase. Money, here's how you do that. Set error is valid. Okay, so now we're getting in the set state part of this, and disable the submit button. Okay, so now we need to add some state to this. Okay, so bring this down just so it's all in there. let, and then we're going to destructure our set state. And so then what is this going to be? Error, set error. I'll just go with the language that they have, equals React.set state use. Man, I will never not write set state the first time. React use state. I guess this will be, let's see, no, what do they want? Set is valid. Username must be lowercase. Okay, so we're gonna set the error, okay, to, actually, I'm just gonna copy this. Okay, so we need this function, and this function is gonna have to be inside of this body, at least for right now, if we want it to actually manipulate this state directly. We could pass it this function and then move it outside of the body, but right now we're just gonna do everything in place. So let's see, so here, instead of alerting okay, actually, in this case, it's actually fine. It's this case that we want to set is valid to null, or user must be lowercase. Okay, so we're gonna check, so they're checking is valid. At this, it's interesting because the condition's actually happening inside of this function here. Interesting. So let's actually, yeah, let's do it this other way that we have. So we're gonna say set error. So if it's, so if this matches, then there's no problem, we're okay. So we're gonna set the error to null. I need to get out of this function. Set error to, so there's, I mean, obviously like a million ways that you could do anything that you want inside of this, but let's do it like that. Since we already have this kind of function set up the way that we, the way that we had it before, not to change too many variables all at once. So let's see, so return set error null, return set error username must be lowercase. Okay, cool. Now we're not using that error yet, which is why we see these squigglies. Okay, let's see. The ternary allows for resetting the error value, but I agree it's a bit less readable that way. Yeah, no, yeah, so we would kind of like create one variable and then, yeah, use the ternary to kind of say like, hey, given this condition, do this or the other thing. And in this case, where we just kind of have the two, it's just truly this one condition, I think that it probably doesn't matter. I can definitely see though, if you were having like multiple form elements and like adjusting multiple pieces of state, where you may want to kind of have each thing isolated, right? Like, so this wouldn't just be like is valid. It would be like is, was it username valid? In which case it might be nice ergonomically to have, just this is username valid, and then have that handle the, do a set error just for that. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how like, this one probably scales better, but then this one looks nicer when it's just a single function, which is always trade-offs, right? Okay, so where are we at? Okay, so now we need to use there. Finally, display the error in the element. Okay, cool. So this is, okay, so there's actually two things that we need to do. So we're gonna, I'm just gonna put a span right here. Right now, we don't have any styling for this, but I'm gonna put it right here. And then, oh, cool. Okay, so we're seeing that. So if I do all lowercase alert, like everything's fine. But then as soon as I put a capital letter in there, We have, well, first the styles break pretty dramatically, but okay, cool. But we're seeing that it updates in real time, which is really cool. And then Ben, I don't know if you're still here, but if there's an article on like kind of the best way to have handled these forms, I'd be really curious to see like if we had a single input like this, like what is kind of the best minimum viable way that we could do this with like accessibility. It looks like actually there's maybe some hints to it here, but maybe this is an area where we can improve things as well. Silently judging you for not using the label. So actually this is interesting. I don't have a lot of historical context with forms. So we have this label here. Do we would use a different label or just change the text inside of the label? Yeah, interesting stuff. Let's see. So I actually gave feedback on one such article recently. So let me find it. Okay, so cool. I love this. Yeah. And yeah, it's like it's interesting because we will have an opportunity to kind of like go through some of these examples, and I would love to, especially in the video part of this where we're like demonstrating solutions, make sure that anything that I demonstrate is has some of those nods to accessibility. And this is an area that I'm actively learning. So yeah. All right. Oh, weird. I can't really copy and paste super well out of this. Let me see if I can get it here. Yeah, there we go. That was a complicated copy and paste. Okay, and then let's see. Personally, I use HTML5 native validation, but you could look at Poppy UI libs for other examples. Yeah, so this is something that's really interesting. So I have had very hit or miss HTML5. Oh man, that didn't work. Okay, I'm gonna try and type this. See, so smashing magazine.com/2023/02/guide accessible form validation. Ooh, hey, first try. Look at that. Yeah, I've had some really hit or miss attempts with the HTML5 validation in React. Specifically, the pattern part of it has been like kind of a mess. Oh yeah, not in React. Okay, cool. Another article. So many great articles. I'm going to capture all these. So timmausk.com/blog/react label 4. Oh yeah, the HTML4. Oh yeah, sorry. More the, let's see, like the, so like HTML5 validation form pattern. This piece of it, like actually validating on a like pattern like this, I have had really hit or miss results with in React. So that's the, yeah, and it could just be that I'm like missing the syntax or I need to like put it in a different way, but this is something that I've had trouble with. And surely there must be a solution. Okay, but yes, I think that these examples could, and I'm going to kind of add a little to do here. To do update the examples to include HTML4. And it's possible that maybe, they get to this part of it and we just haven't gotten there yet. That has happened kind of in these run throughs where I get ahead of myself and I'm like, oh, hey, we should do this or that or the other thing. And it's like, oh, hey, just like cool your horses, because like, we do that. Let's see, where was this? Okay, cool. And then back to, nope, that was the pattern guide. Okay, usability, UX, accessibility in forms, required fields, invalid fields. Okay, so what do we see here? So we see an input, ID address, type text, required. Okay, ARIA invalid true. ARIA described by address error, address hint. Okay, and then we put these in here with the IDs that correspond to the described by. Okay, cool. I think we can do that. So we have an input, type text. Okay, so we got that. And then I guess I'm not gonna put the required for now because that's not a criteria for us right now. But let's see. So I'll say ARIA invalid. And then this will be based on our state, which will be if there's an error, right? And then ARIA described by, I'm going to say capitalization error. And it looks like we use camel case for those. And then in here, it looks like we'll change this to a p tag ID capitalization error. Yep, that matches. So we should be good there. Now, this so this is the question with the dynamic stuff. Like, do I hide it based on, like, do I hide it based on the condition, or, you know, what do we do there? Let's see, a little bit of chat here. I'll put this up there so it doesn't look all nuts. Okay, so right now the way to show an in-context error message is probably by giving the input at ARIA described by, yep, with an ID for an error. Yep, got that set up. And then probably doing a live region shenanigan. Okay, that's probably outside of what we're going to be able to do right now, but yes, totally agree. So it would actually like announce the errors. Going forward, ARIA error message should provide that experience in a much more cohesive way. Oh, that's cool. So ARIA, that's interesting. So there's going to be a, I'm going to make a note. So what was it? ARIA error message. That sounds pretty cool. I'm going to do some more research on that. Cool. And then let's see, for pattern, you can also add custom validation message, but that's a bit more advanced. Keeping it simple today. Keeping it simple. Ultra accessible nod. Yeah. I might recommend not error for the ARIA invalid, so you explicitly get a Boolean. Okay, cool. Yeah, so there's a couple ways we can do that. Yeah, we can do the not, or we can cast it to a Boolean using the Boolean function. Let's see. If using HTML4, that makes it the necessary connection to the inputted ID attribute. So some things like ARIA described by in this situation. They solve different problems. Label name the field ARIA described by provide. This is all great feedback. So first, thank you for all of this. ARIA described by provides a supplementary description. Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So yes, so we need to fix some of this stuff. So HTML4, we're going to call this username input. And then this will be ID username input. I think that's how we get all that. Now let's see where we're at on this. It's honestly amazing. Oh shoot, I need to go back to my screen. It's honestly amazing though, like like how many of these things you have to get right, and like how many questions are like brought up just in getting a single field right. Yeah, it's wild. So thank you for all of this. This is a lot of research that I have to do, I think. Let's get back to this. So we have lowercase. Okay, finally display the error. You may consider adding role equals alert to the element you use to display the error to assist with screen reader users. Make sure you pass handle change to the on change handler of the event input. Okay, so the same thing. Okay. Make sure you pass. Okay, so we got all that. So what happens here? So username. Oh, cool. Yeah, and then putting it, or I guess putting in that P kind of fixed a little bit of our styling. And so then theoretically we'd add a class here for, or class name here for, some, styling to make this red or whatever. I'll just do this color red. Just to simulate that. Okay, so alert. Okay, cool. Username must be lowercase. Okay, so we got all of this. Let's check out. I haven't actually used any of the accessibility tools if they're available in Arc. So let's see if we can get there. So we have the accessibility tree here. We're going to kind of inspect this element. So we have a label, and then I don't have audio set up for listening to the screen reader. So I'm just going to kind of cheat with this part of it. Okay, so we have the username. So we have the 4 is theoretically set up. So computer property name, ARIA labeled by, okay, so none of that stuff is attached, but this input is the one that we have that stuff connected to. So ARIA described by capitalization errors. So that connection is drawn, it looks like. Form label for attribute label username. Yep. So that connection is there as well. So ARIA invalid is currently false, but then if we add a capital letter, that should change to true. Yes, true. Okay, so then the description is username must be lowercase, but then does that go away? Yeah, it looks like it does. So where were we? Where did I see that? Yeah, so this description, so there's no description, and then the description kind of goes in there, which is kind of cool. So let's see. Okay, so what are we saying here? Okay, so boy, howdy do I wish Kent would have included a link about the role equals alert for more context. Holy cow, that's a dangerous recommendation to make without further explanation. He's right in this case, but not broadly applicable. Interesting. I'd love to hear more on that because, so like the idea, so we haven't even touched on this, right? Actually, I'll get back to that in a second. Yes, love me some Kent C. Dodds too. Kent's great. I love Kent. Great human. Okay, so let's get back to the screen. So that, yeah, so you may consider adding a role alert to the element used to display the error to assist with the screen readers. So I am kind of curious. So to do like, is there something that we need to flesh out more on this front? And so let me just add that just to see what happens. And it could just be that, whoops, did I do that wrong? So role alert. Let's see, where would that go? I need to, Accessible role alert status. So does this go? Oh, so this would be for the live region. So there's just like a lot. I think I see what you're saying. There's just like a lot to. Oh, gotcha. Yes. Gotcha. So then the idea being that anytime this changes, it would actually alert that. But really what we want is probably some more of a what is it, kind of like we've talked about in the past, like some like alerting system, which is obviously significantly more involved to set up, but probably like warrants a blog post. I mean, like we've built examples of like live regions for kind of announcing things as well, and so maybe that's like a supplementary blog post that we can like link out to and say like this is a kind of a preferred way to do this type of stuff. um yeah, so I need to figure out how to make this fully opaque, because jumping back to this is always a little weird. Role alert sets up a live region which will announce all changes to the node in assistive technology. That's desirable here, but without further info, folks could overuse it, which could lead to an extremely noisy application. Yeah, and yeah, yep, totally. Good stuff. Good stuff. Um, Yeah, yeah. So role equals alert is the same as ARIA Live assertive. So it's gonna like jump in, like no matter what it was saying before, it kind of like just it's like interrupting cow, right? Moo. Oh, my daughter loves that joke. The former is more semantically correct for error messages, I believe. Yeah, I think that there is, yeah, if there is an error, you kind of want to prioritize it, I suppose. Uh, Yeah, I mean, and then this is where you get into the more the art of accessibility, because there is this like, okay, well, we can maybe make some assumptions about if you are in a text input actively inputting text, that maybe you want those interruptions, in which case like this may be the desired outcome. But there are a lot of considerations to make, and it can be easy to jump to assumptions when trying to make those considerations. So yeah, a lot of questions that are kind of like application and interaction specific. But yeah, good stuff. This is great stuff. Thank you so much for all of the help here. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. Thank you for helping me get that on the right place. So role announce. So when this changes, it's going to interrupting cow say whatever the change was, which may or may not be the desired effect that you're after. So let's yeah. So it looks like we've kind of set this up. We've gotten about as far as we can in terms of like having the best example we can make. And actually, let me capture this, because this was a really helpful, the text error message was really helpful. And let's see. Okay, cool. Yeah, accessibility is so nebulous, it warrants its own course. Yeah. I've been spending the last year or two trying to focus on it, and it's still not there. I can't imagine how much research testing Kent did when creating Downshift. Yeah, it's it's so interesting because I can see both sides of the problem that we're in, right? Like one, we know that kind of unconsidered accessibility in education is this thing that propagates bad practices, right? But then at the same time, there's this full other end of the spectrum where it is so dependent on like full applications, right? Like what is the use right now? Like what is the user doing at that moment? What are they coming from? What are they going to? And all of that stuff needs to be considered. what other things are happening on the page, right? Because like, even though we have this input, like there may be other systems that may be kind of simultaneously trying to like send kind of high priority alerts in. So there's just like a lot to consider, and there is a lot of art to this. And it does kind of like, I feel like a course that would really do accessibility justice would kind of be a little bit more project based and have like these really kind of show how to think about accessibility more so than just like, this is an accessible input. Because you end up kind of in cases like we're at right now, where it's like you have a recommendation that could work in many cases but not in all cases, and it's hard to make like kind of hard and fast recommendations. Yeah, SPAs make it super complicated. There are also some advantages too, because you're not going to get like gonna have to start over every time you get like a new page. But yeah, it means that you have to do a lot more yourself. Yes, practical accessibility today. Shout out. Let's see, practical accessibility. We get there? Yeah, coming soon. Yes. Sarah Champion. Just ridiculously gifted human. And yes, great educator too. So yeah, can't wait. Okay, cool. So we're man, I had to scroll down every time. It goes to the top every time I come back to this page. It's so fascinating. Okay, so I think that we did all of number 2. And so let's see if we get to, so control the input value, production deploy. Sometimes, back to the screen. Sometimes you have forms. All right, Ben, hey, thanks so much for being here. It's always great to have you. Thank you for all this helpful information too. You're great. I'm glad we're friends. I'll see you around. Have a great, fantabulous day. Okay, so sometimes you have form inputs which you want to programmatically control. Maybe you want to set their value explicitly when the user clicks a button, or maybe you want to change what the value is as the user is typing. All right, this is why React supports controlled form inputs. So far in our exercise, all of our form inputs have been uncontrolled, which means that the browser is maintaining the state of the input by itself, and we can be notified of changes and query for the value from the DOM. Okay, so all of this is happening in the DOM, so it's no different than any other type of library. But React is a different library, and it tends to prefer controlling the DOM, telling the DOM what its values are. So if you want to explicitly update that value, we could do it like this: input node.value equals whatever. But that's pretty imperative. Instead, React allows you to programmatically set the value prop on the input like so: input value, my input value. So once we do that, React ensures that the value of the input can never differ from the value of my input variable. Typically, you'll want to provide an on-change handler as well, so you can be made aware of the suggested changes to the input's value, where React is basically saying, if I were controlling this value, here's what I would do, but you do whatever you want with this. Typically, you want to store the input's value in the state variable, so React use state, and then use onChange handler to call the state updater to make the value up to date. Wouldn't it be even cooler if instead of showing the error message, we just didn't allow the user to input invalid input? Yeah, and the extra credit, I've backed us up and provided an error, the error stuff, and now we're going to control the input state and control the input value. Sometimes there's a change. We'll call to lowercase on the value to ensure that it's always a lowercase version of what the user types. So we can get rid of the error state, and instead we're manage the state with username using React State, and we'll set the username to whatever the input value is. We'll just lower case the input value before doing so. Then we'll pass that value to the input's value prop, and now it's impossible for users to enter an invalid value. Okay, cool. This is I mean, honestly, like from a instructional design perspective, I'm really impressed with how good these examples kind of lead into each other. So this is really delightful to go through. Now, one thing I didn't do from the last one is, let's see, disabled. And then we want to do this if there's an error, and then aria disabled equals not error. So this button should become disabled if we do a capitalized letter. So cool, we got that. Nicely done. Okay, so now to this one. Okay, so we have all of that, but really what we want to do is we want to. Okay, so we have an input ref on handle change. Okay, so I wonder if we can do all of this stuff without even touching the error stuff, even though it will never proc because we're going to kind of bypass it. So we're going to call this user name. So I already have a username input, I think. Where is that? Oh, it's just the name here. Okay. Shouldn't be a collision there, but let's call it username value. Even though that's redundant because clearly this is the username value. We just call it username. Set username equals react.use state. And then initial value for this is going to be empty string. And on this, so we're going to call, every time we'll call set username with value.to lowercase. Okay, and then it's going to run those checks, but it's not going to matter. Actually, no, I'm just going to bypass everything. So that's going to render the rest of this tree unreachable. And we'll just kind of do this assignment instead because we know that it's never going to have that. So here I think it's value, and then this will be username. Okay, and so then if I start typing here, so alert, I try to type a capital T, it makes it a lowercase t, and then now, I mean, I could put like caps locks on and it's still never gonna hit that value. So you gotta trust me that I'm actually trying to type capital letters and, you know, whatnot, but yeah. Yeah, so the only so the only thing is, like, in the last lesson we were actually getting values from a form based on the ID. So like, you know, like form, what is it? Event.target.elements for like the form stuff. But you're right, like that would still be nested inside of that object. And so we really wouldn't have it unless we, you know, restructured all of those off, in which case that would still be inside the function, probably the handler function. And so, there's really no opportunity for this to be collided. Okay, cool. So I think that's the end of lesson 6. Let's go to the final kind of chapter in this workshop. And man, this will be, whew. Okay, so 7, we got our project file here. 7 notes we can get through on here. And then what time is it? So it's almost 1. Hopefully we can get through this in the next, like, 20-ish minutes would be great. Okay, so one of the more tricky things in React is the requirement of a key prop when you attempt to render a list of elements. If you want to render a list like this, then there's no problem. So UI, and we have this static list of 1, 2, 3 elements. Not going to worry about that because there's no potential for it being dynamic. But rendering an array of elements is very common. So we have an array here with these elements, and then we kind of dynamically create a list. And here we know that it's 3, but if this is, coming from some state somewhere, it could be any number of things. So this would generate the same HTML, but what it actually does is slightly different. Let's rewrite it to see the difference. Okay, so we have a list of 3 things: list UI, list map, list item, and then we're creating each of these list items. And then we have this UI variable, which includes that list. So we're interpolating an array of renderable elements. This is totally acceptable, but it has an interesting implications when things change over time. If you re-render that list with an added item, React doesn't really know whether you added an item in the middle, beginning, or end. And the same thing goes for when you remove an item. It doesn't know whether it happened in the middle, beginning, or end either. Like how they switched that to the middle being first. Oh no, wait, they did that. Never mind. I like starting with middle. That's interesting. In this example, it's not a big deal because React's best guess is right and it works out okay. However, if any of those React elements represented a component that is maintaining state, that can be pretty problematic, which this exercise demonstrates. Ooh, this is great. I've never actually seen an exercise demonstrate the problem. So I just know that it is a problem. Okay, so we've got a problem. You may have already noticed the error message in the console about it. Try this out. Okay, so I haven't opened the console, but what do we have here? So warning, a component is changing in an uncontrolled input to be controlled. A component is changing an uncontrolled input to be controlled. This is likely caused by the value changing from undefined to a defined value, which should not happen. Decide between using controlled or uncontrolled input elements for the lifetime of the component. Okay. Warning, each child in the list should have a unique key prop. Okay, so we got those 2 errors. Hit the remove button on the last list item. Notice that last item is now gone. There we go. Hit the remove item on the first list item. Notice that everything's mixed up. I don't think that that's true. Okay. Let's see. Button on the first item. Notice that everything's mixed up. Okay, so we're going to open this in an isolated example here. And yeah, rendering arrays. This is like, what is it? There's that quote about like, the web is 99.9% rendering lists of things, which is, yeah, it is. That's what most of my job was. Okay, so we remove the last item. Okay, and then we remove the first item. I feel like maybe I'm missing something. Remove the last item. Okay, remove the first item. Okay, not everything's mixed up. So what am I missing here? Exercise. Hit the remove button on the last list item. Done that. Notice that the list item is now gone. Yes. Hit the remove button on the first list item. Yes. Notice that everything's mixed up. I didn't notice that. Okay, maybe we can jump to what's supposed to be being seen. Here's the TLDR. Every React element accepts a special key prop you can use to help React keep track of elements between updates. If you don't provide it when rendering a list, React can get things mixed up. The solution is to give each element a unique to the array key prop, and then everything will work fine. Let's dive into this a little deeper. Okay, so to do and see everything mixed up when following the instructions. Let's following the reproduction instructions. Let's call it that. Okay. Let's dive into this deeper. If you re-render the list with the added item, React doesn't really know whether you added an item in the middle. Okay, nope, okay, maybe it's just repeating itself. Middle, beginning, end. To be clear, we know as a developer because we wrote the code, but as far as React is concerned, we simply give it some React elements before and we give it some after. And now React is trying to compare the before and after with no knowledge of how elements got from one position to another. Sometimes it's not a big deal because React's best guess is right and it works. Is this repeated? React's best guess is right. Works out okay. Okay, so it's not repeated, it's just extremely similar. If any other React elements presented an input state like this, the value of the input focus, and then we can need to give React a hint so the associated old elements, the new ones, we do this with a key prop. This feels extremely redundant. In this exercise, we have a list of fruit that appears can be removed. Managed by the browser, input for each of the fruit, the input's value, initial and default props. Without the key prop, for all React knows, you removed an input and gave another label different text content, which leads to the bug you've seen in the exercise. Okay. I'm going to reload this again. Oh, gotcha. It was showing up. Okay. It was just too subtle for me to see. Orange, apple, grape, orange. Okay, cool. There we go. Okay, so we recreated it. Finally. That was on me. Okay, cool. Solve this problem, we need to give React a hint. So associated React elements. Okay, cool. In this exercise, we have the first list of fruit appear removed, the state that exists managed by the browser in the input field. Without a key prop, okay, cool. So here's the rule. Whenever you're rendering an array of React elements, each one must have a unique key prop, okay? You can learn more about what can go wrong when you don't specify the key prop of this blog, Understanding React Key Prop. Also, you can get a deeper understanding in this blog post, why React needs a key prop. That'll give you a bit more information under the hood, so I recommend reading these. Okay, the React element we're rendering are the li elements. So for the first exercise, add a key prop there. You can use the item ID for the value to ensure that the value is unique for each element. Note the key only needs to be unique within a given array. So, okay, so this is important. Given array. So this works fine. So an array, the key list ID where we have it, that's great. Okay, so this means that it doesn't need to be kind of universally unique kind of across elements in the way that some types of thing like IDs need to be unique across the entire page. Okay, we got our owl here again. In our example, the value of the input is managed by the browser, but that has even bigger implications when you start working with your own state and side effects. It's a little too early to demonstrate this for you, but you should know that when React removes a component from the DOM, it gets unmounted, which will trigger side effect cleanups. And if new elements are added, then those will be mounted and will trigger your side effects. This can cause some surprising problematic issues for the users. So just remember the rule and always provide a key. Always provide a key when rendering an array. Later, when you have more React experience, you can come back to this exercise and expand it a bit with custom components that manage state and side effects to observe the problems caused when you ignore the key. Okay, so in this case, I think it's should be pretty straightforward on what we need to do. So add a key prop to the list item. So the key that we're going to do is key item dot ID, and we have that conveniently. I know sometimes arrays don't have those, but a lot of times in production cases, at least, you do end up having them because they'll come along with your data. Yeah, and then sometimes you can cheat too. Like if you know that the data that you're working with is unique, that all of the values are discrete, then you can just use that, and React will be fine. Of course, if there's ever a point in time where that those values are not discrete, you create a big problem for yourself. Let's see. Though collections with 100% unique IDs are defs ideal as keys. Yep. I often make copies of collection, adding an ID field using some lib, e.g. nano ID to ensure the unique field. Yeah. And that's a great option. If you don't have a unique ID, then you can augment that list with some kind of, GUID ID maker and whatnot. And it's going to be fine. But yeah, a lot of times though, like you'll do this thing where it's like a lot of times people take the position in the array, and that doesn't do anything. So save yourself the keystrokes and don't do that. Okay, so for this, I think in order to see that error go away, I'm going to have to actually refresh this page and scroll back down. And so that kind of changes the controlled versus, yeah, Shima people using the index. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't do anything. So, yeah, except I guess it makes the error go away, probably. I wonder if they have added another error for that. Actually, we can test that out right now. Don't do this. Just gotta be really clear about that. No, so it makes the error go away. It does make the error go away, but it doesn't do anything of value. So yeah, buyer beware. Yeah, if you have ESLint, it will flag that for sure using index by default. Yep. Okay, cool. So we got through that. So let's recreate that. So we remove our pair, we remove apple, but then we see that orange and grape are still good. Cool. So that was our... So we got through the owl. Okay, so we have an extra credit here. So focus demo. Okay, so for this extra credit, open the production deploy above. Okay, you can observe that when you're talking about state, we're also talking about keyboard focus as well as what text is selected. As you play around with this, try selecting text in the inputs and observe how the first two examples differ from the last one. You'll notice that using the array index as a key, hey, we were just talking about that, as a key is no different from React's default behavior. Yes, no different from React's default behavior. So it's unlikely to fix issues if you're having a problem. Best to use a unique ID, play around with it. Remember, you'll find the source for the demo in the final directory. Let's see, so final, let me open this up as well. So we have, this is the final here. Which should, yes, so that just shows that. And then we'll find the extra credit final right here. There are some other interesting things you can do with keys as well, like changing them on an element to intentionally reset the state of a component. Feel free to play around with that if you like, but we'll be using that in a future workshop. So look forward to it. Okay, cool. So let's see, what did it say? It said that we needed to open up the production deploy. Let's do that. And let's open up our console to see what's happening. So it's on auto shuffle right now, and it's moving things around. We see that we have no keys here. So 1 through 4, and then we have index key. So this is using the index key that we attempted to do. And then with a proper key, we have this. I am not sure what I'm supposed to be seeing. Okay, so auto shuffle. Interesting. I'm seeing the same thing on all. I don't need this one anymore. Okay, extra focus demo. You can observe also keyboard focus as well. Oh, I see. Text is selected. As you play around with this, try to select text in the inputs and observe how the first 2 examples differ from the last 2. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. So in this no key one, it's always keeping that first input focused. At least that's what I'm experiencing. In the index key one, it's keeping that focused. So if I hit 2, it stays on 2. If I hit 1, it stays on 1. If I hit 3, it stays on 3. What about this one? Seems to be the same across switches. Yep. Okay. It's interesting. It does stay in that final position, which I wonder if I move that. Yeah, no, it just moves to the end. So if I select a mid position or a beginning position, it switches me to the end of the input. Okay. And then with a proper key prop, interesting. This is a cool demo. So it's moving around with that input. And as I select different areas of that input, it stays with it. Oop. So that one's going to stay at right behind the A on the orange one. And then let's see, as I type, it updates properly. So then this one, I'm really... Yeah, so it switches input. So I could type, if I keep typing S's, it's going to like kind of filter through. Wild. Okay, cool. That's a cool demo. It's a really cool demo. Awesome. Okay, cool. I think that's it. So, yeah. We did it. We made it through the first full course in Epic React. So this is the React fundamentals. Yeah, this was actually super fun, and I learned a lot. I think I may actually go through and kind of make some like videos about some of my favorite parts on and put those on my YouTube channel. Specifically, like the different like JSX things. I think this is actually rendering arrays. This is a really cool demo. I might kind of go through that as well. And then yeah, I think those were kind of like the big fun things that I kind of learned through this. And it's always amazing to me. I know that like Kent says this a lot, but like you'll learn new things going through all of these courses, and maybe it's not just new things you're learning, but like it's new experiences that you may have had for the first time, because you know the rule of always put a key on an array. And so you always put a key on an array, but then kind of going through these examples and not keying the array and seeing exactly where that becomes problematic is actually a really fun exercise, because I've, never really had this issue that's demonstrated in this kind of orange, grape, apple, pear example. And so to see it is really cool. So I think that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me. Small Gaming, you made it all the way. Super, super great to have you here. And then I always like to just shout out our Discord, https discord.gg/lunchdev. That's where a lot of us hang out. That's where I hang out. Ben is a great friend and moderator over there. And so good times. Anyway, yeah, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me. Small Gaming, I appreciate it. And yeah, see you around. Hopefully I'll do another one of these tomorrow, and we'll jump into the I don't even know what the next one is. Probably not advanced React, but Epic React / whatever the next thing is. Anyway, this has been fun. Thanks for hanging out with me. See you there. Bye.